right now and to be with all of you wonderful people. Let us dance in circles of compassion around the world. Our slides, please. And as our slides come on, I want to thank so many people, Wendy Morell and the wonderful Sacred Dance Guild. I want to thank the technical people working with this, my graduate research assistant, Ivan Acevedo, my current assistant, Ali Escobar, and I want to thank many benefactors who have supported Carla in her wonderful art over the year. And I want to thank my institution, the University of the Incarnate Word, that has given me repeated opportunities to spend time with Carla and to do research. And we are moving towards the first slide, which is Carla De Sola's signature picture. Many of you are familiar with this. In the 1970s, I first had an opportunity to go to New York City and to take small workshops with her. And it was a deepening in prayer, a deepening in awareness for which I will ever be grateful. Next slide. Carla grew up in New York City with her twin sister. Her parents were of Jewish background, but they were not practicing. Now, both of her parents were intelligent and encouraged the twins to learn all they could. And she had an opportunity as a child both to see great things at Carnegie Hall, to enjoy walking along the river there. And she and her twin sister were good students. Next slide, please. And eventually she wound up as a student at Juilliard School, that premier place to be studying music, to be studying arts. And you can see that in a picture posted on the Juilliard website, not only did they show one of their star dancers and teachers, Jose Limon, but on the right, you see Carla as a student. Next slide, please. Now that photograph was from '59. The year before that, Jose Limon had premiered his Missa Brevis, an ensemble work commemorating lives in cities destroyed during World War II. It was inspired in part by a bombed out church in Budapest that he had seen while he was on tour. So next slide, please. Now, as I said, Carla De Sola did not really have a background in religion, but she could feel the strong spiritual quality of this dance. And as she deepened in her technique with Jose Limon, she was coming to discover the sacramentality of the body, how you can know the awe of divine energy within. Next slide, please. She successfully graduated from the Juilliard and she was dancing with companies in New York City. I have seen reviews in the New York Times where they were praising her as a young dancer. She was also teaching in a number of places to support herself. And her sister, her twin sister, Rhonda, had gone to Fordham University. I had an opportunity to get a graduate degree there. And her sister felt drawn to the Catholic faith and became a Catholic. And eventually Carla and her mother did also. So she was deepening in her religious spiritual awareness. Next slide, please. And her godmother was help of Beatrice Boutreau, a great scholar on Teilhard de Chardin, a wonderful scholar who died a few years ago, was encouraging Carla. And Carla wanted to go even deeper spiritually. And Beatrice suggested that she might go to the Catholic Worker House, where Dorothy Day was leading a movement to be aware of God, reflected in the poor, reflected in the vulnerable. Dorothy Day was leading a movement. She was using her ability as a journalist and a wonderful leader to stimulate conversation on justice issues and on peace. Daniel Berrigan, that great prophet of peace in the United States, he looks on Dorothy Day as one of his mentors. Next, please. So Carla De Sola was working with Dorothy Day at the Catholic Worker House. She was dancing, and she was being influenced by the ideas of the French Jesuit priest Teilhard de Chardin. And he felt like the glory of God, the beauty of spiritual energy was shining through created energy. He was calling all to recognize that since creation, and even more since the incarnation, nothing here below is profane for those who know how to see. Next slide. And so Carla, more and more, was living with this mystic sense of God in the poor, God in creation. And next slide. Eventually, through a wonderful combination of circumstances, she prayed at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine, the largest cathedral in the whole world, the lead cathedral of the Episcopal Church in New York City. And she and friends began sharing danced prayer there to the songs, and eventually Carla's wonderful husband, Arthur Eaton, had influence on the dean there, and there was an agreement that in the lower area they could build a studio. So next slide, please. It was absolutely wonderful that for 25 years, a mega liturgical dance group was there at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine, and Carla De Sola was getting known more and more and more as, some people say, a pioneer, but a person who was writing and speaking and developing concepts of spiritual dance and liturgical dance. And eventually she was coming in contact with the Sacred Dance Guild, which had been developing so much, especially with Protestant people. And Carla was sort of a bridge to Catholics and the Catholic Church. Now, next slide, please. I'm only giving you a few glimpses, a few examples of her thousands of wonderful dances and teaching, but she and her friend Greg Reynolds created a wonderful dance, The Passion According to Mary. And Mary, the mother of Jesus, is remembering when her son was small, and then she's seeing her son Jesus on the cross, and she is suffering with her son who is dying. I want to suggest that the universality of this dance, The Passion According to Mary, could speak to all of us right now because we see people around us suffering and dying. The International Catholic Church has these important gatherings called Eucharistic Congresses. And so in 1972 in Philadelphia, marking the US anniversary, there was a Eucharistic Congress called The Hungers of the Human Family. Listen to the pain of people, bring compassion in the face of pain. Mother Teresa of Calcutta spoke of bringing compassion in the face of pain. Next. Dorothy Day was speaking about compassion in the face of pain. I want all of you to know that the Catholic Church is considering Dorothy Day to be called a saint. And when the Catholic Church was looking for witnesses, people that actually knew and had worked with Dorothy Day, they called in Carla De Sola as someone who had worked with that compassionate woman who may be officially declared a saint someday. So Carla De Sola and Greg Reynolds were dancing the Passion according to Mary, this great dance of compassion in Philadelphia. Next slide, please. Many years later, in 2001, the very important dance magazine wanted to recognize Carla De Sola as an outstanding dancer. And these images are from that magazine. And next, please. Carla was on the cover of Dance magazine. So I want to suggest that she was a Juilliard-educated dancer who was great among secular dance companies in New York City, but she chose the path of working with religious dance, working with sacred dance, and establishing quality dance in the sacred, religious, liturgical world. Next, please. Over the years, the man that you see on the left, a Catholic priest, Father Thomas Kane, now teaching in Boston, was doing his doctorate in videography, and he was very, very interested in dance. And so part of his doctoral work was filming Carla and following her dance company. Now, many of you may know his series, The Dancing Church Around the World. He has done such wonderful videos on dance. He has encouraged Carla in writing about dance, and he has been a good bridge with Catholic Church groups. Next, please. Next slide. Now, I want you to just realize that Carla has been so prophetic in so many different ways. Back in the 1970s, there were small groups of people saying, we've got to think about solar energy. It is important. It is crucial. We've got to start thinking of alternative forms of energy. So Carla De Sola in the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine was remembering a Renaissance dance of passing a sunball back and forth, dancing with the sunball. And so Time magazine, talking about prophetic groups across the country that were promoting solar energy in the 1970s, also mentions Carla's dance promoting the solar then. Next slide, please. The New York Times wrote about Carla as doing such a wonderful job promoting dance within churches. And this article was at the time that the dance studio in the crypt in the lower level of St. John the Divine was being opened. Carla's wonderful husband, who supported her through the years, whether it was building a dance floor or filming her work, or maybe many of you like me at Sacred Dance Guild festivals were just taught to author. What a marvelous, prayerful, good human being, interested in the spiritual. So next slide, please. Now, I would like to go into a wonderful part of Carla's life. Paul Winters, the Jazz Museum, and the marvelous dean at the Cathedral Church of John the Divine, Dean Martin, who you see in the lower left with the elephant, they wanted, we must take care of the earth. And so Paul Winters developed the music for something called the Misa Gaia. And once Carla knew about it, she started saying, we need dance for that. And so next slide, please. I hope you're noticing the camel as well as the elephant. So here are some of the original dancers. And next slide, please. So starting in the middle of the 1980s at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine, dancing the Missa Gaia, we must take care of God's creation. And Carla had the wonderful choreographic idea that as we think of the rays of the sun, the dancers are like the rays of the sun. And I encourage each of you in your dance to be a ray of light, a ray of warmth, helping others. Next slide, please. And here is a program from the Missa Gaia. And next slide, please. So I want you to realize that since the mid-1980s, this has been going on, and the wonderful Omega Dance Group that has continued in New York City that Carla founded, I think it's one of the longest running dance groups, is continuing to do it in different places. Next, please. And the Missa Gaia, was spreading to Canada, was spreading to London, was spreading to many places. And next slide. Another image of the program for it. And next slide. I love it that for the 40th anniversary of Omega, the talented people put together this film. Let's watch the film with glimpses of Carla and many dancers through the years. May you enjoy this film as I do. You're invited to close your eyes for a moment. My mother would quote the Indian poet Tagore. He said, "May my love be like sunlight." I said that Carla thought of the gesture that dancers are like rays of the sun. How are you bringing light? How are you bringing love? We have just a few moments to maybe ask 2 questions or make 2 comments to Carla Live. The slideshow needs to go down and we need to see Carla's face and my face on the screen. And there is much more content, but we welcome a question or a comment for Carla now.
Okay, we have some groups of colorful banners. St. Francis must be smiling with the animals and all. Thank you, Carla, for making bridges between Protestants and Catholics. And then I'll continue to read while they come in, but these are some of the comments at the moment.
I'm going to continue with the slideshow and then we'll get back to a little bit more opportunity for conversation. So let's go back to the slideshow. Violence was raging in Ireland at the time. Sometimes people say it was Protestants and Catholics. I have been there. I have been there. It had to do with economic disparities, that people that had been taken care of by the British having more opportunities than the people in the South, the Catholic, the Republic of Ireland people. And so in the midst of that, a wonderful little community of people, Coromila community, was trying to have educational events and retreats to build understanding. And so they would have equal numbers of Catholic and Protestant families, but they wouldn't even let them use their last names because they just wanted to be first names. They just wanted to be people. And so this group asked Carla and Tom Keene, her priest friend, and some other dancers to come use dance in the workshops because dance is wonderful for promoting peace. So let's go to the next slide. So the Coromila people said, we are going to focus on the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who mourn. You have got to acknowledge the pain. You have got to acknowledge the violence and work through it. Don't deny it. You've got to have hope, even though there is violence. And you've got to dance for justice and peace. You've got to work with each other for justice and peace. So among the many things that Carla shared there was this Anne Frank dance. Now, I want you to know that on the YouTube channel that I had the wonderful opportunity to create the YouTube channel for Carla with my assistant, Ivan. We have this. We have an interview of her talking about it. We have the whole dance. We have many of these other dances. So I'm only showing you just teeny bits of things. So let's listen to the film. Let's listen to Carla talk a little bit about this wonderful dance. Now, keep in mind, she is of Jewish background, though her parents didn't practice, but she has I think I want to call them deep, beautiful, ethical roots of Judaism.
There was going to be a Jewish Christian conference somewhere, and I was asked if I could do a dance, and what woman would I choose? And I said, can I do Anne Frank? She's not from biblical times, but what a story. I knew I could dance Anne Frank, both from being of a Jewish background, and I felt I looked like her. So I said, I can do this, but it took a long time, working with her wonderful words, working with the diary, and I made a booklet of all the almost her whole diary. Her diary, Kitty, and she confided to Kitty all the time. So she's on the floor, writing away. Here she is, on the floor on her stomach, her legs kicked up behind her. I see the 8 of us with our secret annex, as if we were a little piece of blue heaven, surrounded by heavy black rain clouds. The round, clearly defined spot where we stand is still safe, but the clouds gather more closely about us, and the circle which separates us from the approaching danger closes more and more tightly. And the dance begins. She is in this hiding place, as we know the story. And outside there's always the sound of footsteps, and are they going to find the place? The score I used was a mixture of, from the Broadway production of Anne Frank. They had it, you know, and you go, wow. And also a beautiful movement from a quartet or quintet of Mozart. I think it was a Mozart quartet that I love very much, and I mingled them together and would freeze whenever the footsteps came. And so she mimicked those footsteps, and I have big boots, and I was pretending to be like the soldiers, mocking them really. And then of course I was coming to Peter, whom she fell in love with. I had a crush on, and then her crying, and then her coming into her room with a big bundle. She had a getaway bag, or at least in my imagination she did. Maybe she did. And I would tiptoe in to be in bed with my father when it got too many guns outside. In the final scene, it's Hanukkah, and she's lighting the candles, and I'm a dancer, not a singer. I made myself sing, Hanukkah, oh Hanukkah, the sweet celebration. And in the middle of that, I'm stopped short because there's this time they find it, and the door opens, and she's trembling, and she clutches her getaway bag, and it's the final moment, and then suddenly her hands go up, she's let out. From the diary of Anne Frank.
All of you are invited to the Carla De Sola YouTube channel to see the rest of that powerful dance. These are only tiny tastes, but I want to suggest, you know, the Carla De Sola who did the creative, relevant dance on Friday evening, I Dream, in the face of the pain of the pandemic, danced in the pain in Ireland, dances about the pain of the Jewish Holocaust and how much we need these stories, how much we need this wisdom. Next slide. I grew up during the Cold War. I grew up with fear of nuclear bombs being used at any time by Russia or the United States. Now, Carla, in the midst of that pain in New York City, was among a group. Her husband was especially working with groups, bringing unity, bringing peace building. And the Soviet American group in New York City invited the Omega Liturgical Dance Company to do a dance for an evening with hundreds of astronauts, scholars, people from the Soviet Union. Next, please. And we're going to watch just a teeny bit of this dance. And I'm going to talk as you are watching it. So we'll try to work out the sound of the film and me talking. But let's start looking at this. Now, one of the Soviet astronauts was there. And he said the greatest day of his life was this prayer. The dance, it was greater than being in outer space, greater than being on the moon, that gave him hope to be a part of this candlelight dance. And you will see the Omega liturgical dancers carrying the earth ball. Carla is known for choreographing with the earth ball, that we need to remember our fragile, beautiful, precious earth, to work together to care for it. So there's school children singing in this, there is a Russian actress in this, there are choirs in this, and most importantly, the dancers are leading everyone in the church into dancing candles. We have our small light in the darkness, and our light in the darkness contributes to justice. Our light in the darkness contributes to peace. Our beautiful way of the Phoenix dance the other night is a contribution to peace in the pandemic, a contribution to racial healing. So you individually and you, your dancers, help to dance healing, help people get in touch with their emotions like fear and confusion, help them work through them. So again, forgive me, I am going to go on to the next slides, and I'm going to tell you, go to the Carla De Sola YouTube channel and watch all of the February fling. All right, next slide, please. So Carla's reputation was getting stronger and stronger. She was both being invited around the United States, to France, to Ireland, as I had mentioned, to many, many different places, to lead workshops, retreats, to dance, to choreograph for groups. Next, please. And what a wonderful memory she has. She remembered that in 1963, she was with Martin Luther King Jr. when he gave the powerful speech, "I have a dream." And next slide, please. So among her many choreographies, next slide, was a Sojourner Truth choreography. Now, I have worked on dramatizing Sojourner Truth, and I constantly work with wonderful Black colleagues, Black musicians, to co-create powerful, beautiful pieces telling the stories. Let's watch a moment of Sojourner Truth, and then we will go on to some other slides.
So this is a dance based on the life of Sojourner Truth, performed by Maria Mitchell.
In 1779, in Ulster County, New York, a little girl was born to slave parents. They named her Isabella. Much later in life, this child will become Sojourner Truth. It was 1856 at a women's rights convention in Akron, Ohio. The presence of a tall, thin black woman, 56 years old, but scorn to the men, many of the clergy, and the women feared that their cause might be undermined if perceived to be sympathetic to the abolitionist struggle, the struggle for freedom. The timid women folk were no match for the more experienced men. Abolitionist struggle. The struggle for freedom. The timid women folk were no match for the more experienced men. The tall, thin black woman did her time until the second day when she could wait no longer. That man over there says that women should be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and given the best place everywhere. Well, nobody ever helps me in the carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place, and ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arms. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man can hit me. And ain't I a woman? Why, I can bear the lash as well as any man, and ain't I a woman? I have borne 5 children and seen them most
And
all
it
sold
continues.
off into
I
slavery.
invite you to the Carla
And
De
I cried
Sola
out
YouTube
with a
channel
grief.
to see the rest of Ain't I a Woman, Sojourner Truth's powerful, powerful piece, and how relevant it is for all of us today. We'll continue with the next slide. Carla has gotten many, many awards. Modern Liturgy magazine called her the most influential performing artist in the last 20 years. The Sacred Dance Guild has called her a living legacy. And next slide, please. She has published many books. She has given many retreats. And next slide. Again and again and again, in the face of nuclear weapons, she has spoken for life. She has danced for life. And I want you to realize that in a few days, we will commemorate the 75th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I encourage you to be with groups like Campaign Nonviolence, in the vigils, in the prayers, in the educational programs this week. And Carla, again and again, has been with those groups. And I have been with those groups because the production of nuclear weapons has destabilized the economies of the world. Millions of people are dying without health care and dying of starvation. And yet we spend the resources of the world on weapons to destroy each other. It is immoral. Next slide, please. For the 60th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, Carla De Sola and Omega West dancers in Grace Cathedral in San Francisco dance this powerful dance, praying for the earth, praying that we might be good global citizens, working together for peace and justice in the world. Next, please. And this is an image from that dance, which was used on the front of Carla's workbook. And maybe many of you, like me, at Sacred Dance Guild festivals have been with her doing some of the wonderful dance experiences in this book. Next, please. For the 30th anniversary of the killing of Archbishop Oscar Romero in El Salvador. Next slide, please. Archbishop Oscar Romero stood with the poor, spoke for the poor, and he was killed for doing that. And so let's watch a little bit of Carla's choreography of the Isaiah scripture reading, Swords into Plowshares, at Grace Cathedral for this 30th anniversary.
Now it shall come to pass in the latter days.
David Macaulay, who danced with Carla for so long.
On top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Neither shall they learn war anymore.
Next slide, please. Carla invites all of us to wisdom's ways. Next slide. We need to do our inner work. We need to go to the center of the labyrinth. Next slide. We need to struggle with the Minotaur. We need to be authentic and truthful and deep. Next. We need to tame the dragons. We need to go into our own hearts and our own bodies. Next slide, please. We need to heal the earth in whatever spiritual path we follow, whether we follow the crucified Christ or the Buddhist path or the Jewish or the Muslim or the Hindu or the path of Native Americans. We need to go into ourselves. Next, please. Carla dances every year on Good Friday at Livermore Labs, where parts for nuclear weapons are created. She continues to invite people, dance for peace, dance for justice. Next slide, please. And more recently, she has created Beyond Words, an interfaith dance for peace. Next. We had the pleasure of having this dance at the Parliament of World Religions. You can find the whole hour-long dance on YouTube. I have posted it. Next, please. Many, many different religious leaders are putting water together, realizing the deep well. All of our water comes from the Creator. All of the water is for all of us. Next. 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 Many religious traditions listening to the cry for prayer, going deep within. Next. And again, around the earth, and next. All people praying in their traditions, the deep wisdom of the Buddha, and next. Gathering, praying for the earth. Next, dancing in circles of compassion around the earth. Now, I want you to know that I am working on a big, beautiful book that has Carla's words and the biographical things I have written and huge color pictures. And you know how big color books are? It's probably going to cost about $100 or so, but Carla is so generous. Out there on the web right now, you could get almost all of the book. You could get all of these wonderful films. And do we have a moment that we can talk to Carla and ask her questions or applaud her wonderful life?
So we started 5 minutes or 6 minutes late. So I'm going to say we can go on for 6 minutes. Are there any questions in the chat, Jessica?
There's some really wonderful questions. So we have this great question. Moira McDonald asked it. So when did Carla realize that dance was an expression of the spirit and that she wanted to advance her dance practice in the direction of worship / channeling of the divine?
About 40 pages on that, but she can give you a short answer.
No, let me
Yes.
think. I remember seeing Jose Limon in the Misa Brevis downstage, right? And he was sort of, his chest was full. That was one thing, and another reaching out into the darkness of an auditorium. Oh my God, there's more than I know about There's more to life than I know. Let me just think of different things. Mostly it was dancing with someone from the Catholic worker, Paul. I would see him praying. He wasn't a dancer, and I would see him praying in Central Park, where he was going to pick me up, so we would dance stories of scripture on the streets in New York. It was a radical time. And I would say, but he's talking with God. I don't know how to do that. There's a conversation. And he just would lift his hands and he'd be all morning in prayer. And I suddenly said, oh, we listen. We're in communication. He wasn't a trained dancer. I had so much to learn. I think that was his extraordinary faith and ability to communicate that naturally in his body. And we would dance different scriptures in different alleyways and stuff in the city, and then pass out bread and honey, I think, bread and honey, and get people to in one way or another. Jairus' daughter, I remember, we passed around the word, do not fear, only believe, do not fear, only believe, as he was lifting me up from the alleyway. I think of those kind of things. And then it turned into more of a sense of, well, I need to get back into the, then I met Arthur in the cathedral and all that, but the seeds were in that time at the Catholic work, were the seeds for it all. And then I was really pleased to reconnect with wonderful dancers. And in all these things you've seen, it's a collaborative process. It's not just my own choreography. For instance, it's Greg Reynolds, by the way, who choreographed the Passion of Chorus to Mary Martha, not myself. It was Greg Reynolds, totally. Every single count was his. It was a wonderful opportunity. And you wouldn't know that. I mean, I did it for years. We did it together. Greg was a figure you saw crouched in the bottom there. And Alan Tung, oh my God, he put together so many dances for, and Avignon, when we went to Avignon, and we did Vidi Aquam, and he put together the whole program for Vidi Aquam with the Golovines from Paris. It was a sacred dance theater. I wonder if Helena ever heard of that. We can talk later at some point. But there was a sacred dance festival in Avignon in France. That was a highlight to be able to do that. I guess I better shut up. More questions. Martha, thank you so much. My God.
So we have another question from Sophia P. And they would like to know, what do you see as the next step for liturgical dance in North America?
It's sowing the seeds. If you're connected with churches, that's wonderful. I would love them to get a sense of the incarnation, of a sense of the sacredness of the body and the spirit and the soul. That's one avenue. Anywhere, everywhere. It's a sense of, as Helena had in the dance, the Kairos, or the water, or whatever we're doing, putting it all together. We need each other so that the world will flourish. And all those kind of dances. And I don't know how to do video things at all, but I know Omega East, as I call them, or as you did in other dances. I mean, so people are all in their rooms, but pulling it all together, it's a whole to explore. I don't know, Martha, maybe you have a thought?
Right this minute, I am putting in the chat box the 3 sources that it's been my joy to work on. The Carla De Sola YouTube channel, the Omeka archival, where we have transcribed 28. I was in California for a summer filming Carla, and we transcribed her wonderful stories about different dances and getting a sense of the spiritual. And I am so happy that this is going to be on the Sacred Dance Guild YouTube channel. And I think Carla's workshop on Friday evening, we need to listen to the present. We need to listen to the present. We need to reflect. We need to pray. We need to go deep. We need to go into our bodies. And then Carla's choreography of being the rays of the sun. We need to be light. We need to be warmth. We need to be growth. Our dance can do it. We can dance the dances of compassion around the world.
And
Do we have time for one more
Do we have?
question, Jessica? Let's do one more
Okay,
question.
let's do
and
one
then we'll
more.
wrap up.
Okay, and I think this is a great question as well. How can dance be used as a tool for the social justice movements of today?
I think when there's opportunities in your neighborhood or whatever you see, whatever is here, volunteer to assist in that way. Might be good to have a couple of dances choreographed ahead of time, or improvisation too is always there. Be awake to what's going on, and the body is certainly such an integral part of justice and everything that a dance should be part of it. So it's just a matter of being tuned into what is available in your neighborhood to foster a sense of the role of the body, spirit, mind, all connected. So it's not just the head. That'll get us into destruction. It's got to be in the body, the heart. And it's the spirit that enlivens that. It's all one. Body, soul, spirit. Blessings. If I can help, let me know.
I would love for those who want to have a photo of this session. And I want to suggest that our bodily presence is our dance of compassion right now to finish up this session for whoever would want to show their face or use their hands or end with an incarnational, compassionate wisdom dance.
Okay, so we'll
Perfect.
take a few moments for everyone to turn on their cameras.
And while you're doing that, I'll just let you know that at the half hour, we will have our closing ceremony in this same room. So as you're all coming in, know that then you get to come to the closing ceremony in just a few minutes, so at the half hour for you, and that we'll have this wonderful experience of being able to share all sorts of things from what happened. We are going through, some of you may be having problems turning on your video.
Yeah, it says my video is disabled.
We're going through to try to help you, my dear.
I'm sorry, I'll be quiet.
It's okay. Well, it's all right.
Mine is disabled too. I'm Carolyn Hine Johnson.
We're going through them one by one.
Okay, thank you.
My colleague who has created wonderful music on the Phoenix that was to be shown in Japan, and he couldn't do it because of the pandemic. He has been with us today. Thank you, Kevin Salfin. May this group of Phoenix people give you energy and encouragement. May the pandemic be over. May you get to present your Phoenix no drama in Japan.
And Jessica and Michelle, would you like to turn on your videos?
Yeah, come on.
You're our support today. We
I'm trying to
appreciate
take
you.
the video, take the picture.
Well, You know, it's true. You can
Can't
hide yourself from
do it at the same
self-view if you
time.
would like. We believe now we've asked all
Then
of
I
you.
won't know what I look like.
Then just go for it. I will also take a video, take a photo from here.
Okay. So go into a pose, a posture, gesture, whatever it feels, right? We're going to take a few photos here since we have a large amount of people. I'll count you down in 3, 2, and 1. Another set of photos. Again, I'll count you down. 3, 2, and 1. And then maybe once more, just because. 3, 2, 1. And I lied once more. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you so much.
And perfect. And I also took some cool ones. So, because I can get all of you on one screen. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Thank you, Martha, Sister Martha Ann and Carla, for this amazing opportunity. This did stream live to YouTube, I think. As a matter of fact, I'm stopping the live stream right now.